You're moving. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, well, there's one part of the house where the cell coverage is reliable, so I'm standing there right now. So I
Okay.
guess that's where I'm gonna have to, oh, shit. Excuse my language. It just went out again.
We can hear you.
We are live streaming on YouTube right now, Council
Yeah.
Morse.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay.
Oh, there you are. All right, well, I'll just get this and go get a chair and
Okay, and maybe just keep your video off for the sake of bandwidth, and we'll just get going here. So I will call this
I'll keep my video off.
Finance Advisory Committee meeting of Wednesday, December 18th, 2024 to order. First item is approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Probably from you, Councillor Getty.
Yep.
Moved by Councillor Getty, seconded by Mayor Leonard. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, that carries unanimously. Second item is adoption of the minutes. Are there any changes, amendments, or edits to the minutes to be proposed? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to adopt the minutes. Moved by Councillor Getty, seconded by Mayor Leonard. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed?
There's the button, sorry. That was in favor.
Great.
Just late.
Seeing none opposed, that carries unanimously. I will look to our clerk for any public comments today.
No.
No public comments. And then moving right into section 4, audit planning 4.1, we have an audit planning presentation for the 2024 fiscal year. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Simpson from BDO.
Sure. Thank you very much. I will share my screen if possible. I'm sharing the right thing. Can everybody see it okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, whoops, sorry, I was trying to make it bigger and I made it smaller.
Oh, you've got your little toolbar across the top. There we go.
There we go. We're good. Okay. Well, nice to see everybody today. I'm just going to hit the highlights because I believe many of you have seen this before and had the document in advance, but our team, myself and Darren, have been on the file for multiple years. Darren is my tax partner who helps me with any non-traditional income tax matters, so GST, PST, property transfer tax. Jen Barkman is our new manager assigned to the file. Our previous manager has left the firm, but Jen has been working in the public sector space with us for several years. So well equipped to handle the file and already working with Kristen on a lot of the planning and interim work. We have put together a fairly detailed timeline just to make sure that we all understand the various steps along the way and all the sort of deadlines near the end to get it wrapped up. But often the challenge is we get the primary audit work done and all the reviews and meetings create some challenges. So I will pause here. We don't have to do this today, but I think we should just confirm that the dates that we propose make sense and work with everybody's calendar sooner than later, just so we're not rushing at the last minute. So any immediate questions on the timeline at this point? Just keeping in mind that the May 15th is our ultimate filing deadline. So that's what we're trying to make sure we're working within.
I've got one.
Yes.
And it's maybe more our control than yours.
Yes.
The very last two dates, and maybe Kristen's wanted to ask this one too. Why such a long lag between April 18th and May 12th? Why aren't we trying to approve the statements at the last meeting in April?
Do you want me to start?
Agenda
Kristen?
cutoff typically. April 18th, if we have the statements by that point, we just need any additional opportunities for some last minute edits. There's always a lot of edits that happen in the narrative portion of the financial statements. And then we want to just make sure that we have enough time for agenda deadlines.
Okay. That was what I suspected. I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah. So Allison, just so I have the earlier council date would be?
The 28th.
28th. Okay, so we'll keep that in mind as a potential. If we're ready, we can try and do it if that's what you're suggesting.
Well, May 12th is just so close to May 15th.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Also, we have a lot of budget deadlines between the 14th and the 28th. So Yeah, I think creating that additional timeline for spaces just creates more of a window for things to be fixed at the last minute if we needed it.
Yeah, I'll just keep that in mind, but I think now that you said that, Kristen, I think that reminds me as to why we pushed it out to that date. Okay. Our audit responsibilities is to work towards the timely issuance of the financials, as well as a management letter and a report to council on our findings and our rationale of those findings, so that we can ensure that we all agree on the approach and the results. We are responsible to identify any material risks of fraud, obtain audit evidence around that, and respond appropriately. At this point in time, I'm not aware of any fraud incidents in the year. We will continue to keep an eye out for those and investigate appropriately if identified. I would say generally in the public sector, we believe that the fraud risk is fairly low. Generally, with respect to revenue recognition, there is not a lot of motivation to inflate revenues or inflate surpluses. So from that perspective, we generally think it's a fairly low risk. In terms of significant risk and planned responses, we are required to consider the risk of fraudulent revenue recognition. So as I mentioned, we don't think that that is a material risk, but we do believe that revenue recognition as a whole is quite complex with the different grant agreements, understanding the stipulations within those agreements and when they are met, and therefore then when the revenue is recognized. So when we do our testing and the volume of testing, it really depends on the number of agreements, and really a separation between a cash collection process and a revenue recognition as services are delivered or stipulations are met. Management override of internal controls. This is another mandatory audit consideration. So it does require us to look at any significant estimates by management, making sure that they're properly supported, or if an approach has changed year over year, is it validly supported? As well as looking at any manual journal entries to make sure that they're properly supported. So non-recurring adjustments are properly supported. Developer permits and contributions, we want to make sure that those are tracked appropriately. In terms of sort of operationally, are they tracked appropriately? But also whether or not revenue is recognized when services are delivered. That is being looked at a little bit deeper this year because there's a new section referred to as PS 3400. This was a public sector accounting standard brought in to deal with reciprocal transactions. So generally, traditionally, governments are always giving the revenues are one-way revenues, and they've now recognized that the standards did not adequately address reciprocal transactions with taxpayers or other parties. So there's some new guidance that we are doing a review on this year. Tangible capital assets, obviously the community center, water treatment plant, and utilities. We need to ensure that those are properly capitalized, and once in use, that they're being amortized over an appropriate life period of time. And to the extent, whenever you're replacing or improving assets, we want to make sure that any old assets are properly written off in the system as well. And all new projects typically have a financing component, so we want to make sure the associated financing is recorded and appropriately disclosed in the statements. Staff salaries and benefits, gets attention given the size, as well as the fact that you have segmented reporting, and we want to make sure that the segments are costs are appropriately allocated to the various segments, so we're getting a good understanding of the cost of services. So we do review not only the salaries, but as well as the benefits to make sure they're being properly accrued and allocated to the appropriate segments as well. We understand the union contract has been settled, so we'll review the new contract as well as any provisions and or retro pay if necessary. And as I mentioned, the adoption of 3400, so not only developer permits, we're looking at all revenue streams under the new section to ensure that they're properly being recorded. So I will pause there and say that the approach we took with Kristen is we were working with a separate team in my firm to help her write this memo, because it is takes a lot of time from her. And so what we're using is a team that's going to do these for several clients so that we get a consistent approach in the sector. And we're sort of leveraging the research and analysis of other municipalities at the same time. So I will pause there and see if there's any questions at that part of the content. Oh, okay. Materiality, the approach is consistent with prior years. So we look at the balance sheet side of the organization and we determine a materiality of 2% of your tangible capital assets, because that is really what drives the size of your balance sheet. But knowing that that number is quite large, we also use a more specific materiality over the operations, the annual operations being about 3% of your revenues or expenses, which is 760,000. I'll remind you that any amounts that we identify, whether corrected or not, over 5% of those balances will be reported to you. So a very small threshold of audit differences are reported, so you can understand the magnitude, type, and number of adjustments that potentially could impact the municipality. I don't propose to go through these slides, just these are some of our quality processes and approaches. I'll remind everybody these red boxes are hyperlinks that go to our website if you're looking for more materials. Particularly the public sector side of our website that has materials there. We have included a copy of our engagement letter. No material changes to the letter. We have highlighted the fees consistent with what was in our RFP document, except that the 3,400 transition is separately. So, and we do have a separate engagement letter for that. So that has been quoted and dealt with separately. So I don't have anything else. I will close my sharing off and take any questions.
Thank you for that. I will look to anyone on the call here, in particular, Councillor Getty, Councillor Morse. Are there any questions for the auditor?
I'm good. I'm glad somebody else is doing this work.
What's that?
I'm glad somebody else is doing this work.
So then we've got a recommendation that the Finance Advisory Committee receive the audit planning letter for the year ending December 31st, 2024 from BDO for information.
I'll move that.
Moved by Councillor Morse.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Getty. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that carries unanimously. And then we are at 4.2, moving to a closed meeting. Can I have someone move the recommendation, please?
I'll move that.
Moved by Councillor Morse, seconded by Mayor Leonard. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That carries unanimously. So we'll move into closed meeting. And then I think, Sarah, you want to